my world shattered. I was 9. I came home to a silent kitchen, my mother, Eleanor, and grandfather, Elias, waiting with grim news. My father, Arthur, was missing. He and Uncle Silas had gone hunting in the woods east of Willow Creek. Dad, realizing he'd forgotten his deer call, walked back to his truck. He was never seen again. Silas waited, worried, then hurried back, truck empty. By nightfall, Canyon County Parks Department rangers scoured the hills. The 2-week search yielded nothing, and the superintendent called it off. Mom, ever determined, kept Dad's name on the missing persons registry. Our family hired a private investigator, a sharp, retired officer from Riverton. He confirmed the grim likelihood. Dad had wandered into old, abandoned mining shafts near Whispering Pines, fallen, and was lost forever. Yet, previous searches had found no trace. The PI, however, discovered a crucial detail the rangers missed: crude graffiti in one shaft. He believed local teens who used the mine as a hangout might hold answers, but he never found them. Uncle Silas took Dad's disappearance harder than anyone. Everyone said it wasn't his fault, but he was never the same. He stayed in touch with the PI, trying to help. I didn't get the full story until much later. The years between Dad vanishing and Mom having him declared legally deceased were a painful blur of hope and heartbreak. My sister, Lily, and I constantly asked, "When is Daddy coming home?" Over time, the sorrow faded, a silent backdrop to our lives. At 22, Lily was at Canyon City College, and I worked in Stoneville. I hadn't seen Uncle Silas in years. He'd kept his distance, telling Mom I reminded him too much of Dad. So, when Mom said he wanted to meet, I was relieved. I drove to his cabin near Pine Ridge. We caught up, sharing stories and a few beers, until our conversation inevitably turned to Dad. Then, Silas made a proposal. Visit the site of Dad's disappearance. He'd found a strange comfort in walking those Willow Creek hills. At first, the idea repulsed me. It felt like slow torture. But over a year of our renewed visits, I came around. If it didn't bring closure, at least I could say I tried. We drove to Willow Creek one Saturday in May. We treated it like a regular hike, beers and cold cuts in tow. As we walked, I realized the woods weren't haunted, not literally. My childhood fear of the area, of Dad's ghost wandering, dissolved. Yet a piece of him, a memory or hope, still lingered. At Big Bear Creek, we rested. I suggested heading back, but Silas wanted to show me something. Another mile brought us to a rocky outcropping overlooking the abandoned mines. "This is where the PI checked," he confirmed, then sighed. "There's something I never told you or your mother. The last time he saw Dad, he'd been walking into one of these shafts." Silas recounted how he'd frantically searched for Dad before calling authorities. Standing on that outcropping, he'd seen a figure dressed like Dad enter a dark tunnel. He scrambled down, ran to the shaft, flashlight in hand, but found no one. He hadn't seen any graffiti, but the mine gave him a profound sense of unease. This, he explained, was his true haunting. The possibility that Dad, upon hearing his name, chose to hide, or worse, that something inside had taken him, rendering him unable to respond. I understood his silence, but told him I was glad for the truth. I assumed we'd leave, but Silas had another request. Walk down to the mine. It was part of his own ritual. I couldn't refuse. We navigated the treacherous incline, past rusted warning signs. Silas believed Dad hadn't fallen or been trapped by a cave-in. His body would have been found. Whatever happened, it happened inside that mine, unexplained. As we approached the jagged entrance, the air grew heavy, colder. Splintered wooden beams jutted like broken teeth. The place was unnaturally quiet, our footsteps loud on the gravel. Discarded tools suggested a hasty abandonment. Silas had heard rumors of flooding, but the official story was a company bankruptcy. The quick abandonment felt wrong. A few feet into the tunnel, the temperature dropped further and outside light vanished. My small keychain flashlight barely held back the darkness. I took a few hesitant steps, then turned to check on Silas. What I saw froze my blood. He stood silhouetted by the entrance, holding a gun. His hand trembled. My mind screamed, but no words came. A cold certainty settled. I wasn't safe. I ran. Silas's gunshot exploded behind me, the bullet whizzing past. I switched off my flashlight, plunging into absolute terror. More shots followed, each flash briefly illuminating the darkness. I saw the tunnel split into 3 paths. I veered out of his sight and turned my light back on, frantically searching for a hiding spot. The narrow walls of the diverting tunnel were covered in black, smeared writing, thousands of lines in an unknown language, unlike any graffiti I'd seen. I had no time to decipher it. Chambers led off the tunnel. I picked one, lunged in, and pressed myself into a corner, heart hammering. I was trapped. My ears rang from the shots. Then Silas's voice. "Come out. Sooner or later, I'm going to find you." I couldn't move, couldn't risk a sound. His footsteps drew closer. He shone his light down my tunnel. My silent plea echoed in my head. "Don't come down here. Please, God, don't let him find me." He kept walking past. A brief hope of slipping out behind him vanished. My footsteps would be too loud. I stayed still, listening. His mumbling grew clearer, but then his steps changed. Sharp, quick, a scrape of gravel. Silence. He'd stopped. "I know you're here, Arthur." Terror fractured my mind. Arthur was Dad's name. Silas had lost his mind. I wanted to reason, to appeal to kinship, but he'd tried to kill me. I resigned myself to rushing him. Then, we both heard it. Rocks shifting deeper in the tunnels. Silas stopped muttering. A rush of warm air swept through the tunnel. It smelled like evil, like burning death. A foul, unnatural scent. I clamped my shirt over my mouth and nose, thinking of toxic gases. Then, Silas screamed, "He's here! I brought him! I did what you asked!" His screams intensified, degenerating into pure pain and terror. I seized the moment, running back the way I came, out of the mine. His screams echoed faintly behind me, then abruptly ceased. I didn't look back. I ran until my legs gave out, then walked to my truck. My hands trembled as I sat, unable to process the horror. I felt no victory, only a numb resignation. I had to report my own attempted murder. I only made it to Willow Creek before pulling over. My hands shook as I asked a motel receptionist to use their phone. I told the dispatcher my uncle tried to kill me at the abandoned mining pit north of Whispering Pines, and that I thought he'd had an accident inside. 2 rangers arrived. I told them everything. They found footprints and shell casings, but no Silas. The search mirrored Dad's disappearance. No blood, no body, no weapon. I explained the warm air and Silas's screams. Weeks later, the park superintendent announced their conclusion: a gas blowout. They believed Silas was hit with a highly concentrated CO2 cocktail, causing disorientation and leading him to attack me. He became the prime suspect in Dad's disappearance, especially given his bank account inactivity. The superintendent was keen to understand why Silas had called me Arthur. More than 2 decades have passed. No trace of Silas or Dad has been found. The mine was sealed with explosives, but I don't believe it was a CO2 rush. I told them the warm air happened after I was hiding, before Silas started calling for Dad. They dismissed it as fear-induced disorientation, but I know what happened to me. And I know what happened to Uncle Silas. I'm just not ready to say it, and I don't think I ever will be. Among the shadowy hollows of 19th century Royal Virginia, a series of terrifying occurrences would come to etch themselves into American folklore as some of the most sinister ever recorded. It was a force of malevolence so palpable, so relentless, that it claimed a life, drove a family to the brink of madness, and left a legacy of fear that lingers in the air of Blackwood County to this day. But the force in question was no mere ghost story whispered around campfires. She was a woman who actually existed, and over time, her deeds and devilry would earn her the nickname, the Shadow Brook Witch. This is not a tale of vague apparitions or spurious sightings. This is the true account of a presence so vile it defied explanation, a nightmare that clawed its way into reality and refused to let go. The Harper family, consisting of Jonathan Harper Sr., his wife Martha, and their 9 children, had settled into their sprawling farmstead in 1804. They had since carved out a life of relative comfort amid the untamed beauty of the Virginia frontier. For more than a decade, their days were marked by the rhythm of toil and harvest, the creak of wagon wheels, and the laughter of their many children. But in the summer of 1817, everything changed. It began with a knock on the cabin walls, sharp and insistent, like knuckles rapping on the other side of the grave. The family dismissed it, claiming the sound was the result of wind on a loose branch, or perhaps a rustling animal. But then came the scratches, clawing at the windows, as if something begged to be allowed inside. Night after night, the sounds grew louder, more deliberate, until the Harpers could no longer deny them. Jonathan Harper Sr., a hardy, no-nonsense farmer with a stoic demeanor, was the first to glimpse their vile visitor in the flesh. While walking through his cornfield one sweltering afternoon, he suddenly froze as a grotesque creature seemingly materialized before his eyes. He saw a dog-like beast with the head of a rabbit, its eyes glinting with a feral and unnatural hunger. In an instant, he shouldered and fired his musket. But as the shot echoed across the field, the canine creature vanished into thin air, leaving only the stench of sulfur and a creeping dread in its wake. That night, the knocking returned, fiercer and angrier than before, as if the beast had followed Jonathan Sr. home. The children began to see things too. Sarah, Jonathan's youngest daughter, wept as she described a girl in a green dress, swinging from an oak tree, her neck twisted at an impossible angle. While Thomas, one of his sons, swore a bird of monstrous size had flown down and perched itself atop the family barn before staring at him with eyes that burned like fire and brimstone. Over time, the disturbances escalated with a ferocity that turned the Harper family cabin into a crucible of terror. Furniture shook violently, while bed covers were ripped from sleeping bodies by invisible hands. Chains rattled across the floorboards, dragged by no discernible force. And the sightings of strange animals continued unabated. Then came the voices. They were mere whispers at first, hissing through the walls, followed by a raspy, guttural tone that seemed to claw its way up from the deepest circles of hell. "I am Alara," they declared. Suddenly, things started to make sense to old Jonathan Harper. Alara Thorne had been the name of a deceased local woman rumored to have once cursed him over a land dispute. Yet, whether it truly was her spirit or something far older masquerading in her name, no one could say. However, what was clear was that the spirit spoke with a clarity that chilled the Harper family's blood, mocking them, revealing their deepest secrets, and taunting them with hints of horror yet to come. Little Sarah Harper, just 12 years old at the time, became Alara's favored target. The witch poured her wrath upon her with a cruelty that defies comprehension. Invisible fists pummeled her fragile frame, leaving bruises and welts that bloomed like dark flowers across her skin. Her hair was yanked into knots, so tight that it drew blood. Her screams swallowed by the night as the witch's ethereal voice cackled in delight. "You'll never know peace," it snarled, pinning her to the bed with a weight no human could lift. The family watched, helpless, as Sarah's bright spirit withered under the relentless assault. Her eyes grew hollow, and her voice was reduced to a mere whimper as the witch continued to deny her any rest. Neighbors flocked to the farm, drawn by tales of the disturbances, only to flee in terror as the witch turned its malice on them. It twisted up their insides, causing unimaginable pain, while hurling objects and shrieking curses that echoed through the trees. The witch might have targeted his children for particularly cruel torment, but it was the family's patriarch, Jonathan Sr., who bore the brunt of the witch's ultimate vendetta. She vowed to destroy him, and she pursued her goal with a sadistic and satanic zeal. His health unraveled as the haunting intensified. His tongue swelled inexplicably, choking off his words. His face twitched with spasms that contorted into a mask of agony, while his limbs seized as if controlled by some cruel and malevolent mistress. The witch taunted him endlessly, her voice a venomous hiss in his ears. "I'll take your life, Jonathan Harper, and I'll dance on your grave." Eventually, on December 20th, 1820, after 3 years of relentless torment, Jonathan Sr.'s body finally failed him. He was found lifeless in his bed, having passed in his sleep, with a vial of strange, foul-smelling liquid beside him. The family later confirmed it was poison, supposedly fed to him by the witch. The state of Virginia recorded Jonathan's death as the only one officially attributed to a supernatural entity, a grim testament to the power of old Alara Thorne, as well as the entity with which she'd compacted. Even General Andrew Jackson, the fearless military leader and future president, proved unable to withstand the Shadowbrook Witch's fury. In 1819, he and his men camped on the Harper family's farm, eager to confront whatever entity inhabited the place. But as their wagon approached, its wheels locked inexplicably, and the air filled with a deafening, hair-raising shriek. "I'd rather face the British Army than spend another night here," Jackson reportedly declared, fleeing before dawn with his troops in tow. If a man of his conviction was left quaking before the witch, what hope did a family of simple farmers have against it? The witch's reign of terror didn't end with Jonathan's death. It lingered, tormenting Sarah and the surviving Harpers until 1821, when it abruptly announced its departure, but not without promising to return after 7 years. And true to its word, it reappeared in 1828, shaking beds and whispering threats to Martha and the remaining children before vanishing again. It vowed another return in 1935, 107 years later. And although no widespread haunting materialized, locals in Adams Creek insist the entity never truly left. Strange lights flicker in the woods. Disembodied screams pierce the silence of the night. And the Shadowbrook Cave, a long limestone hollow near the original farm, still undulates with an energy that drives visitors to the brink of sanity. Upon visiting the Shadowbrook Cave, foolhardy visitors are greeted by what amounts to a gaping maw, its jagged walls glistening with slime and damp, while the air remains thick with a clawing and deeply unsettling stench. Those who brave its depths report footsteps echoing where no one walks, growls rumbling from the shadows, and a suffocating sense of being watched. In 1986, 2 reporters from the Virginian Post planned to spend a night inside, armed with skepticism and flashlights. Yet staff writer Michael Davies and staff photographer Beth Miller lasted mere hours before bolting, driven out by guttural noises that swelled into a roar, a sound no cave should make. It was a short, powerful burst of sound that reverberated from the back of the cave and hit us like a slap, Davies later wrote. It was not a metallic screech or the howl of wind. It was a vocal, loud, high-pitched scream. And we looked at each other, got through that gate, and quickly left the cave behind us. Of course, logically speaking, we frightened ourselves with our imaginations, Davies continued. Or someone very much alive and human, frightened us for fun and profit. Those are the reasonable explanations. But on the night in question, with my scalp tingling and my hair rising, our fear seemed reasonable. Common sense. Davies and Miller seemed convinced that what they'd encountered was real. But was it actually the Shadowbrook Witch? And if so, what exactly is she? Many theories abound. Some call it Elora Thorne's vengeful spirit. Others, a poltergeist fueled by Sarah Harper's adolescent turmoil. Yet some believe a demon masquerading as some kind of spirit is to blame. Science offers tepid explanations. Heavy metal poisoning might well account for Jonathan's symptoms, while mass hysteria seems to amplify and explain the rest. Yet such scientific theories fall flat against the hundreds of witnesses, from neighbors to clergy to General Jackson himself, who saw, heard, and felt the Shadowbrook Witch's wrathful presence. And surely no such hoax could sustain such terror for decades, nor would one be capable of leaving such a lasting scar on such a close-knit community. Today, the Harper family farm is long gone, but the Witch's Cave remains a pilgrimage site for thrill seekers and paranormal investigators alike. Every creak of the trees, every unexplained shadow carries the echo of old Elora Thorne's mysterious malice. Locals speak of her in hushed tones, wary of invoking her name lest she turn her gaze their way. The Shadowbrook Witch is no campfire tale to be shrugged off at dawn. It's a wound in the fabric of reality, a reminder that some evils don't fade, they simply wait for their next victim. And in the stillness of the Virginia night, when the wind dies and the darkness presses close, you might hear it, a faint knock, scratch, or whisper, which promises that the tale of the Shadowbrook Witch is far, far from over.